Oh yes, it is time for a parade. You saw it in the title, you see it here. This is the parade. It's not as exciting as an actual parade, but it's exciting enough. Red, green, and blue parade. We're going to use it for color balancing. Watch this. Oh, you probably can't see it. We're going to do something a bit more extreme. Well, way more extreme. So before, turn it on, Dan. After. Ooh, look at that. All with the help of this Lumetri scope called the Parade. All right, first up, let's bring in two files. This one's called Color Correction G, and stick it on the same timeline as Color Correction M. We'll start with something quite subtle and then something that's got a huge color cast. So let's start over here and let's turn on our RGB Parade. So it's just called the Parade. It's that one there, turn it on. And what we're going to do is actually, before you do the kind of color balancing, you need to really do work with the waveform, okay, and get the tonal range right. So up to you whether you want them all on, okay, or just one, but let's work on this first. So let's get our Luma right first, and then we'll do the, start working with the Parade and looking at the kind of tonal range, or sorry, the white balance or color balance, whatever you want to call it. All right, so the blacks are kind of tidy there, the whites. It's a mixture of looking at this slider, or not looking at the slider, picking the right one, keeping an eye on this, and one eye on this. Okay. Shadows. Really what this is good for is just knowing if you're kind of pushing stuff into the kind of clipping areas or not. Okay. All right, that's enough. It's a little bit flat, but let's have a look at the colors. So the RGB Parade, we'll move this around. So let's get rid of these guys for the moment and just have on the Parade. Okay, and what we're looking for is these guys should be all in balance. Okay, to balance your images means all three of these need to be in a similar sort of height here. So it's looking at this information, okay, but broken into the kind of brightness of the red channel versus the green channel versus the blue channel, whereas this is everything together. Okay, so what we want to do is try and balance them. So pick a couple of lines and look for some significant goop, okay, or trace that you can balance. You can see this bit here is pretty good. It's there at 80 IRE, which doesn't mean anything. International Radio Engineers numbers that they picked, okay, but at 80 IRE, you can see red's a lot higher than all the rest of them. So that's instantly a kind of there's a subtle hue change. You know, it's more red than any of the other ones. Mainly it's going to be, yeah, more red than blue. So what we want to do now is go into my basic correction and the white balance. The temperature here is going to make the big shifts. So just wiggle one and see what, see what happens over here. The dance goes, and you're trying to get them all kind of, I'm trying to get that dot kind of following that 80 IRE line. And that's kind of looking right. And you'll find you'll kind of fix this one, and then there'll be a little bit of this, and then a little bit of that. Okay, and I find that maybe just a little bit more up this way. I'm not even looking at the image at the moment, mainly because I'm trying to show you the waveform here. And it's really hard with real subtle color cast, and you're like, oh, is there a change, is there not? So let's turn it on and off. Can you sense what we might do is I'm going to reset my color balance just so we can see the difference. So it's going to look a bit uglier, but reset this so that I can just turn this on and off, and it's only doing the temperature now. Can you see? Can you see via the video? Okay, would you say is better? The Parade says it's better, and I think it looks better, but hey. So that's what the Parade's used for. So use it for balancing out colors, pick some significant areas, okay, and try and get them to match using something like the temperature and tint sliders. You might be asking, why don't you just use the eyedropper tool? Okay, so let's clear it all. Okay, just weirdly remember if you reset this, down the bottom it doesn't reset that, so you got to kind of like double click them to get rid of them. And let's just use the eyedropper tool and pick a white part. And this is the trouble, is like, which white part? Did that do it? It's pretty subtle. So it's not like an official white like some of those color cards or clapboards. So you can get away with getting close with this, and you might end up clicking on something that's like that there. I know, it's not white in real life. Maybe it looks like in here, it's got kind of a marshmallow color. So that's when you need to start kind of playing with the sliders, and this here is to just assist you in that. Okay, and also know that this is one of the ways that you can get consistency across a couple of clips. Okay, so you can kind of jump from clip to clip and just kind of see where this all lines up, and if there's something's a little off, okay, but works for you in terms of maybe your grade, okay, you can keep that consistent across the other one, like kind of drop the blue a little bit if you're trying to add effects. At the moment, we're trying to balance an image so it looks normal. I'm doing the air quotes again, but let's do this one. This is a bit tougher. It's my garage. It was some B-roll, and it's here because, well, it's this crazy color because I didn't set my white balance. I was just rushing through, and so it is set to kind of like cloudy day inside our room, and it's ended up bright yellow. So let's have a look at our RGB parade. First thing though is remember we need to balance it out. So this is, you'll end up with more than one of these up, okay, often, okay, whichever ones you're relying on the most. So I rely on this one all the time. So we're gonna have this up so I can work on, I'll speed this up now because you've seen this a million times. All right, so that's enough. Let's turn off the waveform. I'd normally leave it on, okay, but we'll turn it off for this tutorial so that you can easily see the parade. So you can see there's no blue. There's loads of warmth, okay, and a chunk of green. So we need to balance it up. So grab our temperature sliders. There's going to be a lot of this. All right, so yeah, I totally ignored the shot and I was just trying to balance this, and I ended up with a good enough result. This one's harder because A, it's pretty extreme, and also the blues have ended up doing some weird stuff. Can you see that kind of really crazy oversaturated? It was pretty an extreme example. So I'll show you how I cleaned this up now, fix the blues a little bit. They're just, they're too much. Actually, before we do that, I'll just show you, I'm gonna reset these by double clicking them, and the eyedropper tool works well in this one. We use these, by dragging and sliding and using these because the eyedropper tool is very automatic. Okay, and sometimes you're like, it gets it wrong. In this case, it does pretty well because I know that's white, these little IKEA drawers here, and it basically got to where I was at. So yeah, I'd shortcut and jump to that in this particular case, but there's so many times where there's nothing, there's something in there that's not white, or it's grubby, or it's off-white, or, the kind of refrigerator whites. I don't know, there's about 1 billion different whites, in the paint chart. So what we're gonna do is, the other thing I'd like to mention is, it doesn't often work if you're looking at like specular highlights or like say bright lights and you click it. See there, that's the automatic setting for using the light in there, and you're like, there's just often weird stuff going on inside of a bulb. It's not putting out pure white. This thing here, in real life is, it's a fluorescent bulb, so it gives off kind of a weird blue color, so that the rest of it goes, well, if that's, it was meant to be pure white, but there's lots of blue, I'll add lots of yellow. And you're like, yeah, that didn't work. So LEDs are okay. They're quite neutral depending on the LEDs that you're, clicking on with the eyedropper tool. But fluorescent bulbs are blue. Tungsten, kind of more old school light bulbs, are yellow, so you end up with a blue tinge. So look for something that's actually white, but you'll find that it doesn't work on everything. Like, let's go for that one. I know that's white. Yeah, got it pretty good. You can see in here, you might be just using this up to confirm that, yep, that's pretty, pretty spot on, except for the blues. The blues are tapping out here. They're like way too saturated. So let me show you how to fix up unique kind of colors if they do get distorted like this. So we're going to use curves. You could use the RGB curves and switch to the blue channel instead of the white. Okay, that's one way of doing it. If you're more comfortable in there, we're going to use the kind of newer hue saturation curves. And in this case, we want the hue versus saturation. So not hue versus hue, we don't want to change the blue, but we want to say, eyedropper, grab the blue that's in that little ice cream pot there, and we want to drag it up and down and decide whether we want it more saturated, nope, less saturated. And then how low you want to go, I'm looking at the image, it's hard to know. That feels a bit right. And what we might do as well is we're lowering the saturation, but we also might lower the brightness. This is hard, like, is this because I'm just like really looking at the blues now? But so the hue versus luma, so hue versus brightness, same thing again. I'm going to find, oh, what did I do? So I'm going to click that once, click on this. It's got the right one. And I'm gonna lower this down. Brightness. Much on, off, on, off. How do I feel about the blues? Oh, that's gonna do. Like, the problem in here is this is like very unnatural. The lighting in here is strange because it's inside in a shed downstairs. So yeah, I feel like we've got it balanced. Let's turn it all on and all off using this FX at the top here. Before, after. Before, after. That makes me feel better. Sometimes you can spend ages just in the weeds trying to fix things that maybe don't need to be fixed. Okay, well, this is going to be very different. This is B-roll for a YouTube show. So not as important as, you know, kind of A-roll for a feature film. So you might not be as cavalier as often I can be with colors. That'll do. So if you learn what the parade is, it's another way of kind of visualizing the color balance. In all honesty, I prefer the kind of longer method using the vector scopes. Remember, we did this and we did a mask around a certain area that was white and we tried to balance it. And the trouble with that though is you need something white in the image. Okay, or complete gray or complete black, okay, for that to work, whereas this here can work on all clips. The other thing while we're here is organizing these. So often I'll have just, you know, we'll have all three of these on, let's say I've got that, that, and that. And you're like, oh, I wish that was there and that was there, and you're like, you can't drag them. So it's a trick of turning them on and off again. So if the last one ends up at the bottom. Okay, so let's turn off the RGB Parade. And turn it back on, it'll end up down the bottom. The last one ends up here. So that's the trick for that. It's a bit clunky, but that's how it works. The other thing is, if you find it very hard to see all this trace, you will have to join the rest of us when you're editing in a dark, dank room. Your room doesn't have to be dank, but it has to be dark. Like when I start these tutorials every morning, at the moment, or when I'm editing, I have to go through, pull all my blinds on my windows. It's a beautiful day today here in Ireland, but I'm in the dark with you editing. So I've had to like pull the curtains, and I've got a couple of lights on so that it's not too gruesome in here, but you will find that you can't have lights reflecting on your screen when you're editing, especially when you're doing detailed stuff like color balancing. So that's one thing to consider. Completely black is probably the easiest because then you've got no influence of ambient light. I've got daylight lights in my office. I put them in special so that they don't shine a specific color everywhere around, both for recording and for editing. The other thing you might do though is if you have to work in working in an office or somewhere where it's bright and you can't deal with the dark, you can go into preferences and go to appearance. So remember, it's edit preferences on a PC. And here you can go to appearance and you can play around with this, and it does make it easier to work with. Like I've got mine down when I'm working. I don't know, I have to reset my preferences so often that I forget to go and change this back up. But if I was only editing and not tutorialing, I'd have this up nice and bright, and same with interactive controls. That is, let me show you what those are. It's anything that is blue. Active controls, let's have a look. You can't see anything. It's the blue parts. Well there, that's going up. See that there? The current time indicator. Anything that's blue, you can make brighter. So when you're in a dark room, it's better to have it nice and low so that you're not blinding your eyes. But when you're in a bright room, make it brighter. There you go. Oh, just look at the sample color. Whoops. All right, on to the next video.